There's a psychological weapon so effective. It ends arguments without a single shout, without a raised fist, and without the exhausting back and forth of a typical confrontation. An entire nation, forged by fire, sun, and a landscape of relentless tests, has honed this weapon into a cultural art form. This isn't about aggression. This is what happens when loud, brash, unsustainable arrogance collides head-on with something far more powerful. Weaponized calm. It's a showdown where the victory is not announced with a yell, but with a slight, knowing smile. It's the story of how confidence, when it's quiet and unshakable, dismantles ego piece by piece, using the other person's own energy against them. Today, we're not just observing funny travel stories. We are decoding a social survival manual. We are breaking down the 3 ironclad rules of what we'll call quiet confidence. These are the exact, repeatable tactics that allow someone to control a room, end a conflict, and make a boastful person instantly regret their choice of words, all while keeping their own blood pressure steady. And by the time we finish, you won't just understand the principle, you will know exactly how to apply these rules in your own life. From the boardroom to the family dinner table, this is the art of winning by not fighting. Let's begin with rule number 1. The setup, the core principle, is this. Never engage the argument. Instead, engage the situation. A loud, arrogant person is performing. They need a stage, an audience, and most critically, an opponent to play against. Your first and most powerful move is to deny them that opponent. Do not provide the resistance they expect. Your silence, your calm, becomes a void where their bluster echoes back at them, hollow and revealing. Think of it not as passivity, but as strategic patience. You are not running from the fight. You are choosing a different battlefield entirely. One where their weapons are useless. Consider the classic corporate showdown in a Sydney high. An American executive, all sharp angles and sharper tongue, opens a high-stakes merger negotiation. Let's move. My time is very, very expensive, he declares, a not-so-subtle flex meant to establish dominance. The Aussie CEO across the polished table doesn't bristle. He doesn't fire back with, "So is mine." That would be playing the game on the visitor's terms. Instead, he performs. He leans back, the leather of his chair sighing. He reaches for the coffee pot and pours a cup with an almost agonizing, ceremonial slowness. The only sound is the rich dark stream hitting porcelain. He looks up, meets the executive's gaze, and says, utterly flat, "No drama, mate. We'll get there." In that moment, he didn't reject the premise of speed. He simply ignored its urgency. His deliberate calm became a pressure chamber. For the next 2 hours, he lets the visitor's own impatience and verbose energy fill the room, bounce off the walls, and slowly, visibly deflate. The lesson is physics. Don't fight their fire with more fire. Just quietly, methodically. Control all the oxygen in the room. You can see this rule in action under the blazing sun at Bondi Beach. A tourist, buoyed by Californian bravado, struts onto the sand and makes a proclamation to the universe. Real surfers don't need lifeguards. He's throwing down a gauntlet, expecting a debate about masculinity and skill. A local, waxing his board with a zen-like focus, doesn't take the bait. He doesn't yell back, "You're an idiot who'll drown in 5 minutes." That would be engaging the argument. Instead, he simply glances over, gives a barely perceptible nod, and says, "Righto, legend." 2 words. They are a masterpiece of the setup. They are a verbal trapdoor disguised as agreement. He's not endorsing the statement. He's granting the tourist enough rope. 10 minutes later, the prophecy fulfills itself. The legend is being hauled ashore by a wiry lifeguard, sputtering seawater. The lifeguard, the final actor in this play, doesn't scold or lecture. He delivers the punchline with perfect comedic timing. "Solid effort out there, mate. Want me to fetch a pool noodle for the encore?" The entire beachfront, which had been subtly watching this social experiment unfold, cracks up in a unified chorus of laughter. The arrogant tourist didn't get into a shouting match. He became an involuntary, live demonstration of rule number 1. He wasn't defeated by another person. He was meticulously set up to fail by the sheer, unwavering weight of his own unchecked ego. Now, let's move to rule number 2. The inversion. This is where the psychological jiujitsu happens. The principle, agree, and then amplify their premise to the point of delightful absurdity. This is the engine behind the famous Aussie phrase, "Yeah, nah." You verbally step onto their platform, only to immediately pivot and show them the trapdoor they didn't see. You use their own game, their own rules, to beat them in a way they never anticipated. It takes their strength and makes it their greatest weakness. Walk into a no-nonsense pub in Perth. The air is thick with the smell of hops and history. A loud patron, emboldened by liquid courage, challenges the stoic miner next to him to a contest of masculinity. Whiskey, straight up. Let's drink like real men, he slurs, slamming his glass down. The miner, a man whose face looks carved from the red rock of the Pilbara, doesn't refuse. Refusal would be a rejection of the challenge, which could be seen as weakness. Instead, he shrugs, emotion so small it's almost missed. You choose yours, he rumbles. He agrees to the game. The Yank triumphantly slams back his shot of amber whiskey. Now, it's the miner's turn. With a slow, deliberate motion, he pours a glass of clear, overproof rum, the kind that seems to fumes and warps the air above it. He nudges it forward. The American, committed to his performance, takes a hearty gulp. What follows is a rapid, silent film of regret playing across his features. Confusion, then a wave of heat, then a full system meltdown. What in the hell is this? He finally gasps, tears welling in his eyes. The miner raises his own untouched glass in a slow, deliberate toast, his expression as unchanged as the Outback horizon. Tuesday, he says. Just one word. He inverted the entire challenge. It was no longer a test of who could drink more whiskey. It became a test of local knowledge, of tolerance for the authentic, of who truly understood the stakes. He used the other man's game, but switched the playing field to his home turf. You can spot the inversion at work in countless scenarios. At a Queensland crocodile park, a visitor from Florida lets out a condescending chuckle. You call these little guys monsters? Our alligators back home would treat this as an appetizer. The keeper, calmly holding a juvenile saltwater crocodile whose tail is twitching with latent power, doesn't get defensive. He doesn't launch into a lecture about bite force. He grins. Fancy a quick cuddle? Then, he asks. He agrees with the surface-level premise, it's not scary, and amplifies it to its logical, terrifying extreme. Let's get physically closer. The man's subsequent shriek and backward leap into a puddle is the visceral, undeniable payoff. The argument is over. The data has been collected, and it was loud and wet. Or step into a surf shop in Byron Bay. A temple of faded logos and salty air. An American customer is ranting about the ridiculous, overpriced junk on the racks. Back in California, we get boards twice as good for half this price. He barks. The owner, resin brush in hand as he fixes a ding on a vintage longboard, doesn't look up. He doesn't defend his craftsmanship or his margins. He simply says, "Sweet. Tell you what, rent the cheap one right there. The yellow go on, show me how it's done." He inverts the entire conflict. He moves it from the abstract realm of talk and opinion to the unforgiving, concrete realm of action and proof. The man, locked into his own performance, has to accept. He returns, not 30 minutes later, soaked and sheepish, holding two very distinct pieces of yellow fiberglass. The owner finally glances up, a slow smile spreading. "Told ya, mate," he says, nodding at the wreckage. "That one's strictly for looking at. The wall's that way." This rule is brutally effective because it forces people to confront the reality of their own claims. It calls their bluff. And when faced with that cold, hard reality, the boastful persona almost always, and often spectacularly, breaks. This brings us to the coup de grace. Rule number 3, the irreverent punchline. The setup creates the opportunity, the inversion executes the maneuver. But the punchline seals the lesson and makes it memorable. The principle, land the impact with humor, not hostility. The goal is not to wound or humiliate out of malice, but to educate with a sting so precise and so funny that the lesson sticks. It transforms the moment from a conflict into a story, one the other person might even tell against themselves later. It takes the air out of their aggression and replaces it with the disarming sound of laughter, often from everyone around them. Picture a classic pub in the heart of Adelaide. A visiting businessman, louder than the jukebox, is holding court, bragging about his Tesla's ludicrous mode, his 3 investment properties, and the nightmare of his impressive mortgages. It's a performance of affluent stress. An old farmer at the end of the bar, hands like weathered leather wrapped around a schooner of beer, listens in silence. When there's a rare pause for breath, the farmer speaks, his voice a low rumble. "Nice, that," he says, nodding slowly. "I've got a ute outside that starts most days, and about 200 sheep that come when they're called." Sometimes, it's a brilliant contrast, stated without a hint of sarcasm. It reframes wealth not as debt and complexity, but as simple, functional reliability. The tourist scoffs, a dismissive smirk on his face, missing the point entirely. The farmer takes another contemplative sip, then adds, almost as an afterthought, "Difference is, mate, Mine actually work for a living. The room, which had been a passive audience, explodes. The laughter is genuine, roaring, and unifying. The braggart is left stunned. He can't even muster real anger. The shot is too clever, too true, and delivered with such dry warmth that hostility would make him look even worse. He's been disarmed by mirth. The same precision is on display in a Darwin waterfront restaurant. A diner, thinking himself hilarious, puts on a cartoonish, cringe-worthy accent for his waiter. "G'day mate, crikey, chuck another shrimp on the barbie for me, would ya?" he says, elbowing his friend. The waiter's professional smile remains fixed, a monument to polite service. "Certainly, sir," he says, and vanishes. He returns not with ordinary grilled prawns, but with a small plate of the chef's infamous sunburn prawns, tossed in a sauce of ghost pepper and native pepperberry. The diner, committed to his bit, pops one hole into his mouth. The transformation is instant and theatrical. His face flushes crimson, his eyes stream, and he reaches for his water with a frantic gulp. The waiter leans in at that moment and says, softly so only the table can hear, "We call 'em prawns, sir, and we generally don't warn blokes who do bad accents." It's surgical, it's memorable, it's instantly shareable. The punishment fits the crime with poetic, spicy justice. Now, why does this three-part system work with such brutal consistency? The answer lies in fundamental psychology. Loud arrogance is a high-energy emotional state. It's all spark and flame, dramatic, intense, but ultimately unsustainable. It requires constant fuel in the form of attention, opposition, and escalation. Quiet confidence, on the other hand, is a low-energy state. It is solid, stable, and deeply rooted. It is the bedrock. By refusing to match the high energy, by not shouting back, not getting visibly angry, not providing the expected resistance, you perform a kind of social judo. You drain their fuel, you become the immovable object, and their chaotic energy, with nothing solid to push against, collapses under its own weight. They don't lose to you. They lose to the unsustainable nature of their own performative ego. As one wise observer put it, don't silence the arrogant, just let them hear themselves. That's the core of it. You provide the quiet space for their own words to ring hollow. So how do you translate this from observation to application? The toolkit is simple. First, pause. When confronted with boastful or aggressive speech, your initial reaction should be deliberate silence. Let their words hang in the air. This brief void unnerves them and gives you control of the rhythm. Second, smile slightly. Not a mocking smirk, but a small, calm, unreadable curve of the lips. This nonverbal cue is profoundly disarming and confusing to someone expecting a fight. It breaks their script. Third, use their words. This is the heart of the inversion. Find the core of their claim and agree with it on the surface, then gently steer it towards its logical or absurd conclusion. You're right. It does look easy. Why don't you show me? Your calm, steady demeanor is the anvil. Their noisy, frantic energy is the hammer. Your strategy is to let them swing until they tire themselves out, revealing their own weakness in the process. Let's bring it all together. Rule 1. The setup. Let them dig their own hole by denying them the argument they crave. Rule 2. The inversion. Step onto their platform and then pivot, using their own game to reveal its flaws. Rule 3. The irreverent punchline. Seal the lesson with humor that educates, not alienates. This framework isn't really about Australia or tourists. It's about a fundamental power shift in human dynamics. It's about understanding that true strength is often silent, and that the loudest person in the room is frequently deploying the weakest, most fragile strategy. It's the power to diffuse, to control, and to ultimately win a social situation without ever needing to raise your voice, make an enemy, or sacrifice your own peace. If you found this breakdown of quiet confidence valuable, if you can see yourself using these rules, then do the algorithm a favor and show us you want more content like this video right now. That single click tells YouTube this is useful. And subscribe to Winds of Thought. Our entire mission is to turn these everyday observations, these hidden scripts of human interaction, into your personal advantage. We give you the lens to see the game, so you can play it better. Now, the conversation turns to you. This only works if we learn from each other. I want to hear your stories in the comments. What's a situation where you've successfully used calm to diffuse an arrogant person? Or maybe you were lucky enough to witness a truly masterful, real-world nah moment. Tell me your story down below. The most insightful ones might just inspire and feature in a future video. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, until it's time for the perfect, quiet punchline.